it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen. The strangest security tape I've ever seen. I work at a gas station in rural Pennsylvania. It's a boring job, but it's pretty easy. It pays alright. A few weeks ago, this new guy started. I'll call him Jeremy. Now, Jeremy is weird. He's about 25, 26, and he hardly speaks. But he's got the creepiest laugh I've ever heard. My boss and I have both noticed this, but it's never been a problem, so there's not much we can do about it. Customers have never complained about him, and he's always done his job fairly well. Up until a few weeks ago, anyway. Yeah, that's when things started going missing. Employee theft can be a problem at any business that sells consumer goods, and there's only one person working at a time at this gas station. It's a pretty small place. About 2 weeks ago, my boss started noticing that we were short on motor oil. At first, it was a few containers at a time, then entire shelves and boxes from the back room. Well, pretty soon, entire shipments would be gone the day after we got them. It'd always be right after Jeremy's shifts. My boss has checked the security camera tapes from every single night he worked, but he could never catch him in the act. Jeremy would lock up at closing, and the motor oil would be gone the next day. My boss usually takes the tapes home with him to try and catch Jeremy stealing, but his daughter had a softball game last night, so he asked me to watch the tape for him. He offered to pay me overtime under the table, so obviously I took that offer. There were 3 cameras, so he gave me 3 different tapes to check. I figured it'd be a long night, but I'm trying to save up for vacation, so I really needed the money. I took the tapes home, popped them in an old VCR, and sat back. 2 days ago, last time he worked, Jeremy started at 4 p.m. Everything seemed pretty normal at first. Counted up his drawer, switched off with the girl who was working before him, and waited for a customer. The first person who came in was Mrs. Templeton. The timestamp on the video read 4:03, a regular. She picked up her cigarettes and a newspaper and paid with a 20. Nothing unusual there. The next customer was some local guy named Ron. He drives a motorcycle, usually comes in every few days. He filled up his tank, got a bag of beef jerky, paid with his credit card, and then left. Next was some guy with a cowboy hat. I'd never seen him before, but we get plenty of strangers passing through, just like at any gas station. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel, paid with a $100 bill, and went on his way. I sat back and sighed. The only thing more boring than doing this job is watching someone else do it. My boss's offer was enough to keep me watching, though, so I left the tape on. Everything seemed pretty normal. I had a feeling that if Jeremy was stealing motor oil, he knew we were suspicious of him by now. I didn't expect him to be dumb enough to let us catch him on camera. Things stayed boring and routine, till about 5 o'clock. 5:03, Mrs. Templeton came back in. She must have forgotten something. But she didn't. She bought the same pack of cigarettes as before, and the same newspaper. She paid with another 20. Well, that's odd, I thought, but then again, she is a little absent-minded. I thought Jeremy should have told her she already got her smokes, but it's not against the rules to sell somebody the same thing twice. That's when Ron came in again. He bought another tank of gas for his motorcycle again. I later checked the outdoor camera because I thought maybe he had another car he wanted to fill up. And the same pack of beef jerky. He paid with his credit card again. Well, no big deal. I figured this was just a weird coincidence. Mrs. Templeton is forgetful, and Ron probably owns more than one Harley. That's when the guy in the cowboy hat came back. I felt a chill run down my spine. Don't get diesel. Don't get diesel. I found myself whispering to my empty living room. But he did. He got $40 worth of diesel fuel and paid with another $100 bill. Every move he made was identical to his first visit, right down to the way he scratched his nose before he walked out. Oh, either this guy is rich, owns a lot of trucks, and just moved into town, or something really bizarre was happening. I kept watching. Every customer for the next hour was the same as before. Every single one. I was seriously freaked out, and then at 6:03 Mrs. Templeton walked back in. She bought her cigarettes and newspaper again, and paid with a 20 again. I thought I was going to lose it. I only watched another half hour before I started fast-forwarding through the rest. It was all the same. Every customer would come in at the exact same times, exactly 1 hour apart. Yeah, now, I know what you're thinking. That sneaky mother Jeremy had messed with the tapes. He'd run a loop of the first hour of business over and over. Well, that wasn't the case. I mean, there were windows around the cash register area that the camera covers, and I watched the sunlight fade as time ran on. Jeremy's routine didn't loop over. No, he swept, mopped, restocked, and did all his duties exactly how you'd expect. But the same customers kept coming in. Well, I was panicking at this point. Something was seriously wrong with what I was seeing, and I had no explanation for it. I skipped ahead to when he locked up and walked out to his car. He hadn't stolen anything, but I kept watching just to make sure. I fast-forwarded one last time to about midnight. Exactly 12:03, out of nowhere, Jeremy's face pops up on camera. Now, I don't mean he moved his head into view. I mean that 1 second the store was empty, the next his face was all I could see. He wasn't looking at the camera. He was looking at me. I was sure of it. I screamed and fumbled for the remote. By the time I grabbed it, he was gone, just as soon as he'd left. One frame he was there, the next he wasn't. My hands were shaking like crazy, but I popped in another tape. The other indoor camera shows the back area by the cash register, and I'd be able to see how he got up and put his face in the camera like that. I skipped ahead to 12:03. But there was nothing. I mean, I would have been able to see him standing on a chair or something on this tape, but he wasn't there. I didn't see him enter the store at all after he left. It's like he really wasn't there. He doesn't know the security code, and no alarms were triggered that night after he locked up. What I did see, however, was that at 12:03 the motor oil vanished off the shelf. I mean, all of it. Same as Jeremy's face. 1 second it was there and the next it wasn't. I turned that tape off and went to bed, but I didn't get a wink of sleep. My body's exhausted right now, but my mind is racing. That tape was undoubtedly the creepiest, most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. Well, I work in a few hours. My boss has asked me to bring the tapes back in and let him know what I found, but really, what the hell am I going to say? Jeremy works the night shift tonight, directly after me, and the plan is for my boss to come in just before I leave and confront him with me, as I'm supposed to be the one who caught him stealing. No idea what I'm going to do. I suppose I'll have to show my boss the tape, but I don't want to watch them with him. I never want to see something like that again. I can't get the image of Jeremy just smiling directly into the camera out of my mind. It was the creepiest look I've ever seen on another human being's face. Anyway, I'm going to try and get some last-minute sleep before I have to go in and deal with this. I'll let you guys know what happens. Update. 2:49 p.m. Updating from my phone. Apologies in advance for errors. My boss just finished watching the last of the tapes. I told him what to expect, but you really can't prepare someone for something like that. Well, he's scared shitless. I still am too. And Jeremy's due to come in at 4. We've got a little over an hour to get our shit together, but neither one of us knows what to say to him. Is he just some fucked up guy who likes to steal motor oil and scare the shit out of people? Or is he something else? I don't know if this is crazy, but could he have anything to do with the time loop? My boss said he never noticed anything like that in the other tapes, But the way he popped up in this one made me think he knew I'd be watching. It's like he wanted me to see what he could do. Like he was showing off or something. The way he smiled into the camera was like a little kid showing you a sandcastle they just built or something. I don't know, I probably sound crazy. I sure feel the part. I'm going to talk to my boss some more. We have to calm ourselves down and figure out how to handle this. I'll update again tonight, but I have a really bad feeling about how this is going to play out. Update, 4:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 5:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 6:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 7:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 8:33 p.m. No sign of Jeremy. Tried calling him, but his phone has been disconnected. We're calling the police. Update, 10:58 p.m. Holy shit. I just got home and saw my previous updates. Things make less sense now than ever. Oh, here's what I can tell you. I went to work. Jeremy never showed up. My boss and I decided to call the police, as you're well aware. When I picked up the phone to call, though, the sun went out. I shit you not. That's what I thought happened. Apparently I blacked out for exactly 5 hours because when I looked at the clock, it was 9:33. I think I got stuck in Jeremy's time loop, and then I snapped out of it at the exact point I blacked out, if that makes sense. But that's when things got really weird. My boss was right next to me when I blacked out, ready to corroborate my story to the cops. When I came to, the phone was in my hand, but it was dead, not even a dial tone. My boss was still right there, but he wasn't moving. He was standing up, but frozen. I looked at the clock again, and it wasn't moving. The second hand was stuck on the 12. It was exactly 9:33. The clock on the register, the computer screen, wasn't moving either. My phone was frozen. There was even a customer at the register, waiting for my boss to get him cigarettes. I'm betting that would have been his 5th pack of the day. Well, I got the fuck out of there. Didn't lock up, didn't turn the lights out, and sorry guys, I didn't grab the security tapes to upload on the internet. Believe me, that was the last thing on my mind. The gas station's on a major highway, and cars were parked all along it. Except they weren't parked, they were frozen. The people inside were sitting still as wax statues. I got in my car and prayed it would start, and thankfully it did. About halfway home, time started up again. The static from the radio turned into music, like it was supposed to be. From what I could tell by listening to the host talk in between songs, no one had noticed the time freeze, or whatever it was. I was the only one. Well, I'm sure Jeremy noticed as well. I still have no clue where he is or what he's doing. I'm hiding in my room and calling the police again in the morning. I don't know if I ever got through to them before, or if I did, whether they took me seriously. I'm scared for my life at this point. Well, I'll update tomorrow, if I can. Final update, 10:33 a.m. I finally fell asleep last night around 4. No idea how I did it. I guess exhaustion finally got the best of me. This morning I woke up to my phone ringing. It was my boss. He'd been calling me since about 6. He woke up when time turned back on last night and immediately called the cops. They came by to see what was wrong, and he told them everything. The police around here are all small-time guys. They were more concerned with the missing motor oil than anything. But my boss figured as long as he had their attention that he'd take it. And they decided to go looking for Jeremy. We keep all our employees' applications on file, and since Jeremy had just started working here, his was easy to find. They checked the address on it and headed over to his house. Well, you are not gonna believe what they found. The address Jeremy listed on his application was an empty lot, or at least now it is. There used to be a house there, but it burned down in 1993. Being a small town, almost everyone remembers that fire. A family of 4 used to live there back then. Rumour has it they had an estranged son who they never really talked about, but I can't say for sure that that's true. What I can say is true is that after an insurance investigation, the fire was ruled an arson. The entire house was soaked in oil and torched with a Molotov cocktail. The whole family was sleeping when it happened, and none of them survived. They never caught the person who did it. Rumour has it that when they tried to contact the estranged son, no one could find him. Anyway, my boss called and told me this, and I freaked out. Then he asked me to come to the gas station. "What? Are you crazy?" I said. But he assured me that the cops were there with him. Then he dropped the bomb. The FBI were also in town and they were going to talk to me one way or another, so I might as well come in. It was about 7:15 and I wanted to go back to bed, but I figured I wouldn't be able to sleep much more anyway, so I went down. 4 men in suits greeted me and told me to have a seat. We went over everything 2 or 3 times until they got all the details down. I told them about Jeremy, the security tape, the last night at work. Everything. Finally, after I'd finished, one of the agents said, "Oh, Christ, we've got another one on our hands." Then they made me sign a bunch of papers saying I wouldn't tell anyone about what had happened, and so I can't say much more. Might be breaking the law by just posting this. So, now I'm home. Not sure what to do with myself. That agent's words when I told him the story are going to haunt me for the rest of my life. Anyway, I have to go. I have some errands to run today. Then I have to go into work to pick up some tapes. Yeah, my boss and I think this new guy, Jeremy, he's a complete creep. He's stealing motor oil, and I have to watch the security footage to see if I can catch him doing it. Well, I have better things to do, but my boss is paying me overtime, under the table, and I'm trying to save up for vacation so I could really use the money. Yeah, should be pretty simple. The oil always goes missing right after his shifts. I figure I'll just watch the tapes, catch him in the act, and that'll be that. I'm an after-hours security guard for a medium-sized downtown office building. Not in a terribly dangerous city. Just, well, average. Glamorous, I know. Well, on top of that, I'm either losing my mind or in the midst of some really strange shit. A few nights ago, my boss gave me security tapes that he wanted me to look over. Apparently the guard that I rotated shifts with had quit, but it was a bit unconventional. He didn't give anybody any prior notice. It appears as if he simply left in the middle of his last shift, and we haven't been able to contact him since. On the same night, there'd been a break-in. Seemingly nothing stolen or damaged. Just the front glass door, which was now shattered. Now, I knew about the break-in beforehand, but not about the guard. It was weird, but, well, this is kind of a shitty job, so it wasn't anywhere near shocking. My boss wanted me to try and identify who'd done it, and said that, the cops are lazy and it would take weeks for them to even look at it. His quote, not mine. Sure, it was an annoying request, but I guess it's on me for not finishing college. It was a pretty quiet night when I got around to it. My boss told me to look it over on my own time, but, well, that wasn't happening. So, at around 2 a.m., I finally began watching. It took a lot of fast-forwarding until I finally got to something. We were right. The old security guard, Chris, literally got up and left at exactly 2:17 a.m. that night. Even weirder was that he left all his shit behind. He just walked away. Okay, I thought. Shit happens, whatever. I kept watching until the break-in at 3 a.m. Some medium-built dude dressed in a stereotypical burglar outfit, ski mask included, took a baseball bat and smashed through the front glass door. I'm pretty sure that Chris never even locked it behind him when he left, so that was a waste. Oh, also, our alarm didn't go off because we didn't have one. Cut costs wherever you can, eh? Well, it's a wonder that I still work here, given the fact that some guy could literally break in, stab me to death, and the cops wouldn't even know about it until the morning. But, well, that's beside the current point. The intruder walked in and entered the stairwell, so I tracked him. A bit of a complicated process, but I finally found him on the 6th floor. That's when he took out what looked like a wire. I felt my skin crawl a bit upon seeing that. There's only a few reasons as to why a person would carry wires around in their pockets, and one of them stands out as being particularly unsavory. He started making his way down the corridor, in a manner that I can only describe as methodical, purposeful even, as if whoever he was stalking was not yet aware of his presence. Moments later, the door to a room up ahead of him flung open. He reacted quickly, ducking into an adjacent hallway as somebody else came out. And let me tell you, I was not prepared for who it was. It was me, a near replica. I say near because the guy's face looked borderline emaciated, while his gloves barely clung to his limbs. I was more of a muscular build myself, but I had been skinny before. I knew what I looked like, and that was it. My copy was wearing what looked like some kind of white heavy-duty jacket. Almost looked like something a soldier would wear in an Arctic climate. On top of that, there was a large streak of red covering his chest. Probably doesn't take a detective to figure out what it was, given the circumstances. Well, he also appeared to be exhausted, with one bony hand holding the wall whilst he was doubled over, exhaling like hell. Eventually, he started moving, stumbling towards the intersecting hallways where the mystery man was presumably waiting for him, hands clasped around the wire. I found myself instinctively reaching for my phone to call 911 when I realized this wasn't happening in real time. But even if it was, how was I supposed to describe the situation? As my copy passed by, the mystery man pounced on him, but it seemed as if he was anticipating it, my copy that is, and a vicious struggle ensued. Despite my copy's frail appearance, he still managed to hold the upper hand against the mystery man for a while. Let me tell you, I sure as hell can't fight like that. The combination of the military-grade jacket and the hand-to-hand training that this guy clearly practiced yielded a few possible avenues of explanation. But I was going to need a lot more info in order to really understand what was going on here. Despite being pounded on for a good few minutes, the mystery man eventually landed a lucky uppercut that staggered my copy. He quickly took the opportunity, rushing and forcing the wire around his neck until he went limp. That struggle ended. What followed was interesting. He dragged the body back to the room that my copy had come out of and shut the door behind him. I fast-forwarded up until today. Nobody else came out. Nobody went in. There was nothing I could do for the rest of my shift but just sit there, absolutely floored. The next day, my boss asked me what I'd seen. I told him a fabricated version of what had happened, that some dipshit high school kids in masks broke the door down for fun. Nothing we can do about it beyond installing an actual security system. He said he'd look into it. Yeah, sure he will. Now, I considered just forcing myself to forget about it. That would have yielded more sanity, but some things are just too bizarre to overlook. During my next shift, I decided to take a look at the 6th floor myself. I assumed that it'd just be a bunch of cubicles up there, but I was obviously interested in one specific room. Once up there, I started walking around. It almost felt surreal being in a place where something so strange had just happened. In fact, it got me questioning whether or not I'd just lost my mind for a few minutes, and if anything on that tape was even real. But I got my answer when I saw the stain on the carpet. It was barely noticeable, but I knew what I was looking for. A speck of blood from the struggle. I wasn't sure whether it was from my copy or the mystery man. I kept going down the corridor, trying to locate the room that my copy had come out from. On the footage, it was pretty evident that it had to be the 4th door on the right. I tried the handle. Locked. And then I tried something that would most certainly cost me my job, but I rationalized it by realizing that if anyone was ever going to watch the tapes, it was once again going to be me. I kicked the door down and headed in. It was a conference room, but one that looked to be under renovation. There were dry paint cans, an unfinished carpet job, and drywall covering the walls, but nothing unusual. Yet, there was bound to be something here. For the first few hours that I stalked the room, I couldn't find anything noteworthy. The other way out of the room was a stairwell exit, so it was reasonable to assume that he simply escaped through there. I was about to give up when I stumbled upon something hidden under one of the desks. A device of sorts. Well, maybe. Couldn't really tell you. Despite being rather small, it was incredibly heavy. A cylindrical-shaped metallic item. It was smooth all around, save for a few buttons that did nothing when I pressed them. Oh, and a dried, bloody thumbprint. Wonder who that belonged to. I stood there, trying to decipher the particulars of the item for an indistinguishable amount of time, but an abrupt noise jarred me back to attentiveness. Footsteps in the hallway. Footsteps getting closer. I was not doing my job. A few ideas regarding the identity of the intruder ran through my head. Obviously, none of them were good, and one of them was really bad. In any case, I made a beeline for the stairwell, and I took the metal thing with me. I didn't go back to the building until about 5:40 a.m., 20 minutes before the end of my shift. To my surprise, the new glass door that we'd installed was still intact, but I definitely knew that I'd heard steps out in the hallway. Maybe they'd found another way in. Maybe I'm just going insane. Well, I'm still holding the device in my hand. What am I going to do with it? No freaking idea. But I do know what I'm doing next. Time to pay a visit to the old security guard. Chris has to have some kind of answer here. I never knew Chris all that well. He was a work friend at best. But I knew where he lived, and that was all the information that I needed. I went over to his place and knocked. No response at first. Didn't really know what I was expecting, in all honesty, but I stayed put in my pursuit for answers, continuously pounding on his door. I mean, wasn't it kind of peculiar that he conveniently quit on the night that the break-in took place? Well, I must have stood outside his door for about 20 minutes. Logic would dictate that he simply wasn't home, and I was beginning to believe that, until I heard a noise on the other side. It sounded like somebody accidentally knocking over a pair of shoes. Oh, this ass was silently staring at me through the peephole. "Chris, open the damn door," I said, in a borderline threatening tone. Still no explicit response. He wasn't doing a great job of concealing the fact that he clearly knew something about what had happened, and then he slipped a piece of paper under my door. In messily scribbled writing, this is what it read. "Can't tell you anything. He'll know." Okay, I thought to myself, that doesn't sound good. I tried knocking for a few more minutes before his neighbors started poking their heads out. I decided to leave before somebody called the cops on me, but I wasn't planning on dropping this. I ran the facts through my head as I walked home. He'll know. I didn't want to admit it, but those words greatly concerned me. Who the hell is he? I stewed on these thoughts as I made my way up to my apartment. But when I got there, I realized that I may have fucked up big time. My lock was busted and my door was half open. Call me a pussy, but I dialed 911 immediately. The cops came over in a reasonable amount of time and began the investigation. All in all, the only thing that was taken were $50 in cash that I kept in my drawer. Well, that's what they put on the official report, after all. But that wasn't all to the story. There was something else that was missing. The device. In retrospect, the fact that I took it in the first place was a dumbass move on my part. No shit, it was going to have some kind of tracking system in it. I didn't even know what the hell it was. This posed a conundrum for me, of course. It was, presumably, the mystery man that had broken in. He knows where I live. He also tried murdering somebody who looked just like me. Safe to say, I was probably in danger. The cops said that they would station a vehicle outside my apartment complex in order to keep an eye on me for the night. I wasn't really sure how effective that was going to be, but it couldn't hurt, I suppose. But still, I didn't sleep. That night there was a knock on my door at around 2 a.m. I nearly shit my pants. But then I heard, "Police, open up," coming from the hall. I looked through the peephole, and it was indeed the 2 cops that had been assigned to wait outside my building. One of them chuckled when I opened the door. "How the hell did you do it?" he said to me. "How'd I do what?" I asked in confusion. He simply scoffed and then abruptly cuffed me. Although tired as hell, I still relentlessly questioned them about what the hell they thought I'd actually done. It was only when I'd waited for half an hour in an interrogation room when a detective came in and gave me the answer. Apparently, I'd entered the building that I worked in, knocked the new night guard unconscious, and broken into one of the upper floor rooms. They also showed me the proof. Security footage of exactly what they described happening. A person in a stereotypical burglar outfit waltzed in just as the new guard was locking the door for the night. They got into a fight. The mystery man won, but not before the guard managed to rip his ski mask off. Split seconds that displayed his exposed face yielded all the evidence that they could ever need. It was me. Again? The footage then tracked him all the way up to the 6th floor, where he entered a room. Guess which one that was. He was also carrying a bag with him the whole time, and it really wasn't a mystery regarding what was in that either. The last recorded footage caught him running out of a fire exit. I couldn't even begin to attempt to answer the detective's questions. I know I didn't do it. Well, you know what I mean. I just kept trying to analyze what kind of situation this put me in. If the mystery man that I'd first seen was also me, then that means there had been at least 2 copies of me out there. And they were trying to kill each other. Then the situation with Chris made more sense. Maybe one of my copies had threatened him. The answer has to be in that device. "Hello?" the detective bowed to me. "You listen to me, Mr. Case?" No, I wasn't. He sighed. "Look, we're just trying to figure things out. What was the plan here?" I reciprocated a sigh. "I don't freaking know." That entire conversation understandably produced 0 conclusions. The detective stepped out and left me alone with my thoughts once again. But no matter how I framed this situation, it was always inexplicable, beyond my comprehension. I sat in shocked silence for about 15 more minutes before the rabbit hole was dug even deeper. I started hearing commotion out in the hallway, and then gunshots. The detective suddenly rushed back into the room, looking confused as hell once he saw me. "How the f..." is all that he managed to get out. "What's going on?" I asked him. He just shook his head before coming over and pulling me up, all while I was still in cuffs. "Oh, we gotta get you out of here." He started directing me towards a back exit while some kind of hell was going in the background. At this point, gunshots were going off left and right. We were just about out the door when I saw a bullet go through his skull. I made it out just before him, so I didn't suffer the same fate. But I did see who'd done it. It was my copy, staring blankly at me and standing at the other end of the hall. He fired off a few more shots at me, but they were stopped by the door. Fueled by perplexed adrenaline, I simply started running. I wasn't really sure where I was going, so I just ducked into a nearby forested area. Once there, I hid myself in some bushes. I stayed there till sunrise, and luckily my copy never found me. I heard police sirens all night. There was bound to be a lot of explaining to do if they ever caught me. However, I'm sure they'll be just as confused as I am once they view the security tapes inside the police station. Once I'd convinced myself that the coast was clear, I got up and tried figuring out where I was. It was an excruciating process, trying not to be seen by anyone, given that I still had handcuffs on, but I eventually managed to find my way. I went to somebody who I knew could help me out in this situation, my friend Jack. Now, Jack was a drug dealer, and before you judge me for being friends with a drug dealer, let me preface that by saying that he only sold weed and cocaine, and he's never killed anyone before. I'm pretty sure of that. It was about a 3-hour walk from the city to his farmhouse, but I eventually made it, finally getting the damn cuffs off in the process. Now, he asked questions, of course, questions that I could not answer. Right after shoveling some food down my throat and smoking a joint to calm me down, I went on the internet and looked for any news coverage about the incident. I can't estimate how many cops were killed, but it seemed like there were a lot, so this should have been a big story. But there was nothing. At first I found a few detailing some vague incident near the location of the police station, but after a few refreshes, they disappeared. Somebody was trying to hide this. I can't speculate what's really going on here, but maybe they know something that I don't. It's probably better for me that my face isn't plastered across every TV screen in every local diner, but this also begs even more questions. I'll try and explain the situation to Jack later. Maybe he'll believe me. Maybe he'll think I'm a freaking loon. But as for right now, I don't see a ton of options. My copy's probably searching for me right now. The events that have transpired over the past week have taught me that I really don't know much about the world. But I do know one thing. I couldn't stay at Jack's anymore. The few days I've been here have pretty much consisted of me simply lounging around. I'll admit it, I'm scared shitless to go back into the city. All I know is that my copy hasn't been tracking me. I'm not entirely sure how he found me at the police station, but what matters is that he can't seem to find me now. But a new problem has presented itself. I think somebody else is looking for me. Last night I was having a cigarette on the back porch when I noticed some kind of disruption in the crop field. It was dark, and I wasn't paying really good attention, well, initially, so I didn't catch it until it was uncomfortably close. Something was moving around in there, making its way toward the house. I was on extreme edge at that point, so I immediately ran back in. I told Jack what I'd seen, and he subsequently stormed out there with his shotgun. I waited, tensed, for what felt like about 15 minutes, and then I was jarred by a booming slug, and then another one. Jack rushed back in, eyes frenetic, and locked the door behind him. "What the?" he said, sounding petrified. "Don't tell me they're after you." What'd you see? Did it look like me? I asked him. He shook his head. What? No. Like some dudes in body armor or some shit. I don't know. Look, if they're after you, you best speak up. That was the issue. I didn't know who the hell he was talking about. The situation suddenly escalated when I saw flashing red and blue coming from outside. The cops are here as well, presumably drawn in by the gunshots. Oh, frickin' Christ, Jack blurted out. All my shit's here. They better not snoop around. And then he turned to me. Look, if something's going on with you, then you should probably leave. Leave? I asked him, in disbelief. There's cops out front and weird armored people in the back. Where am I supposed to go? He shrugged. I don't know. We could hear heavy footsteps making their way up to his front door. Oh, suppose you could take your chances and hide here. Can't stop you now. And then they started knocking. I made my way upstairs while Jack opened the door and talked to the cops. As I hid in one of the bedrooms, I eavesdropped on the conversation. It started out calm enough, but it escalated rather quickly. All of their voices started raising at an exponential rate. It sounded like Jack was on the defensive about something. I could make out what he was saying, albeit barely. There's no one here. All of a sudden, footsteps began storming up the stairs. I didn't have time to ask, what the hell? They were looking for me, and for too many obscure reasons to probably count. I opened the window and jumped out before they could find me. While I was out there, I considered attempting to steal the police car, but I suppose I wasn't really balls enough for that, so instead I simply started running. I knew that there was another town that was about a 2-hour drive from where I was, but in terms of walking, well, let's just say that I had a trek ahead of me. After about an hour of walking along the empty road at night, a truck stopped for me. Now, under normal circumstances, there was no way in hell that I would have gone with this freaking guy. To put it bluntly, he looked like a serial rapist. But the situation at hand seemed to necessitate it. Plus, it started to feel like I was being followed again. Going somewhere, bud? The driver asked, with a black-toothed grin. I smiled back. Yeah. You down to give me a lift? Unsurprisingly, he didn't go where I was directing him, instead leading me down some sketchy trail. I started anticipating where my first move was going to be. I'd taken a pocket knife from Jack's house and was clutching it in my hand as he drove. I decided that the time was right when he stopped us in front of a rusty shack. All right, he said, sounding comically foreboding. Time to get out. I could see him start reaching into his pocket, but I was faster. One jab to the ribs and he was screaming. I followed up by elbowing him in the face and dumping his squirming body on the ground outside, but not before I took his wallet. As I started driving away, I could see about 4 more equally sketchy-looking dudes coming out of the shack. I shuddered, not really wanting to think about what they had in store for me. In any case, I had bigger issues at hand. I drove to the town that I was talking about earlier and used some cash I'd taken from the guy's wallet to rent a motel room for a few nights. Whilst I was sitting in my dingy accommodation, I started trying to put the pieces together. My copy was trying to kill me. There are multiple versions of my copy. There were dudes in armor roaming around Jack's crops. The cops were looking for me. And, well, I really couldn't go back to my apartment. Nope. I had no freaking clue where this was going. Feeling frustrated, I decided to head out for a few drinks. This asshole had about $600 in his wallet, so I was going to splurge on a few Heinekens. I'd also found a small revolver in his truck, so I took it with me. Safe to say, I wasn't feeling that safe. I made my way over to the tavern and sat at the bar. I ordered 2 beers and some chicken wings, because, well, why not? Just as I was getting relaxed, the bartender seemed to recognize me. Hey, you again, he said to me. Oh, God, no, I thought to myself. Apparently my copy had been here earlier, presumably looking for me. "How long ago?" I asked him. Looking confused, he responded, "About 10 minutes ago. You don't remember?" 10 minutes. Shit. Feeling a bit nauseous, I went to the washroom and weighed my options. I suppose that it made sense to stay, given the fact that the copy had already left. He wouldn't have any reason to come back, right? As it turns out, wrong. Out of nowhere, I started getting a headache, and my vision went wonky. I could still see, but my sight was distorted. Best way I can put it. Well, it quickly subsided, but the nuisance was replaced by sounds of commotion coming from the bar. It sounded like somebody was arguing about something. It sounded like I was arguing about something. It was my voice. It was him. The bathroom door suddenly kicked open and somebody walked in, eventually coming to a stop right outside my stall door. I wasn't taking any chances. I pulled out the revolver and fired off 2 rounds right then and there. I was met with surprised, labored groans as I climbed out up top. I landed right beside him, right beside my copy. This was the first time we'd stared each other down directly. Staring into my own hate-filled eyes was something of an abstract feeling. Sure as hell didn't feel right. The headache and vision problems began coming back. I could tell it was affecting him as well. It also looked like he was wearing a bulletproof vest, so, that explained why he was still standing. Fight or flight, I thought. An extremely quick deliberation yielded flight. I fired off another round at him, the bullet narrowly grazing his ear, before running the hell out of there, into the confused and horrified faces of the bar patrons. Behind me, he fired off a few shots of his own, but luckily none of them connected. Zigzagging my way through the streets and alleys, I took a convoluted route back to the motel parking lot, where I got into my commandeered vehicle and floored it out of there. I only made it about a half hour before the shitty truck broke down. It then took 2 more hours of walking in order to reach civilization again. Another small town, another dingy motel. And that's where my current situation has placed me. Obviously, I don't see an end in sight here. I'm on constant high alert, adrenaline fueling my paranoia. I think it's paying off, honestly. I've seen the same black sedan drive past my window about 4 times now. Yep, the black sedan is definitely on my ass. How many people are chasing me at this point? I couldn't find any spare revolver ammo in the truck, and I don't think buying a gun is feasible right now. Not like my shooting was any good, regardless. The sedan just made its 7th trip past my window. Are they just taunting me at this point? It certainly feels like it. Also, I've been experiencing some weird shit. Not like the headaches or anything, but sometimes I'll blink and the lights to my room will suddenly become darker, or a window will move over a few inches. What do they call these? Glitches in the Matrix? Well, add them to my laundry list of problems. I've been forcing myself not to sleep, since I reckon these guys could probably just break in and shoot me in the head at any time. They know I'm here, so I honestly don't know what they're waiting for. I've considered running off, but where am I going to go? They're obviously tracking me somehow, so it seems fruitless. I never remembered falling asleep at any point, but I must have, given the fact that I was jarred awake by gunshots. I rushed over to my window and looked outside, seeing the sedan now riddled with bullet holes, and guess who'd done it? Yeah, it was my copy. I'm not sure if he thought it was me inside the vehicle. Maybe he had multiple targets. Whatever. He was certainly after me now. I could feel another headache coming on. Not only that, but the room around me seemingly started to shrink. Still in a reasonably cogent state of mind, I told myself that it wasn't real. I knew that it wasn't real. It all came to a head when I saw a shadow passing by the curtains. In a rather irrational move, fired a shot at it. Not really sure what I was thinking there. Probably just pent-up frustration. I simultaneously missed and gave away my position. Still reeling from the headaches, I ran into the bathroom as I heard my door being knocked down. He was in. I hid in tense silence as I heard him walk around the bedroom. This wasn't going to work, I thought to myself. There weren't many rooms that he had to go through before finding me. Only 2 bullets left. I grasped the revolver as he approached the bathroom door. The last room that he hadn't checked. The door suddenly flung open, and I took my last 2 shots. Both misses. I was cornered now, and my headache was reaching near unbearable heights. In a last-ditch effort, I tried tackling him. Thankfully, it took him by surprise, and we went tumbling back into the bedroom. But, well, that was about the extent of the fight I put up. I didn't have any combat experience after all, either on foot nor on the ground. He delivered a few blows to my stomach, and I was suddenly laid out on the carpet, with him standing over me, aiming a pistol point blank at my temple. "Wait," I asked him, trying to come to terms with my obscure loss. "Look, you won, but could you do me a small favor? Please explain to me what the hell's going on." He lowered his gun slightly before smirking. "Yeah, sure. Least I could do." So, I got my answer, but I'm still not entirely sure if I fully understand it. He is me. Not a clone. We were one and the same, just from different realities. He explained how the universe that he'd come from was considerably further ahead, technology-wise, than mine. Far enough to the point where they'd perfected a form of dimension hopping. But in his world he was also a criminal, a large-scale thief. His most recent endeavor? Stealing one of the devices that would allow somebody to traverse to different realities. Things went messy during his plan, and he was forced to use the device in order to orchestrate an extremely convoluted escape. And ultimately, he ended up here. But the problem with entering different realities lies in the fact that there will likely be another version of you, and that directly goes against the laws of the natural universe. You see, he and I are identical, but at the same time, we're not. There are subtle differences that set the realities apart, and when they start bleeding together, even in the slightest, well, the universe just can't accept it. At first, the problems are marginal, but the longer that 2 different versions of the same entity exist in one reality, the worse it gets. Not just for the 2 involved, but for the reality that they're inside as a whole. "That's why killing you was top priority for me," he said to me. "Nothing personal, that's a given, but I can't evade the fuckers that are trying to chase me if this reality begins falling apart. You felt the headaches, haven't you? Seen the visions? That's the universe saying that one of us has got to go. I can deal with everything else later, but for now," he raised the gun once again, "well, this needs to end." Oh, for fuck's sake. I put my arms up in a defensive gesture. He hadn't explained everything yet. Like, why was there more than one copy of us in this reality? Like the one he killed when I first stumbled upon the security footage. But, well, we never had a chance to get to that. "Drop the gun." A booming voice suddenly came out of nowhere. At first, I thought it was the police, but I threw that idea aside as I caught glimpses of who it was. 4 large men wearing what looked like expensive militarized suits of armor were pointing massive armaments at us. Across their chests were the white letters NC. My copy sighed. Shit. Before looking at me, eyes filled with annoyance. "Now look what you've freaking done." The armored men talked among themselves before one of them approached us. He took out some kind of device with a holographic screen. "Look into this," he said to me. Without much of another option, I obliged, staring into the center of the screen as the thing seemingly scanned my face. After a few seconds, it was over. "He's the correct version. Take the other one away," he said, before putting the device away. The rest of the men restrained and led my copy out the door. I could barely react as all of this was happening, simply standing dead still until the sun came up. When everything was said and done, I finally went back to my apartment, still in an extreme state of shock. I haven't made any contact with the police, nor have the police attempted any contact with me, so I'm not really sure where that's going. I suppose I should be glad that this whole ordeal seems to have been concluded, but there's one thing that still disturbs me. The last I saw of my copy, he was smiling. I'm not new to the internet, nor am I new to Reddit or any other social media. I just tend to visit, read, then go about my day. I learned in the earlier years of being online to never engage in fights, but I do spend the majority of my time looking things up and doing lots of reading. Much of that reading isn't spent on anything supernatural, but, well, now I'm at a loss. I'm currently working security in Center City. That's downtown Philly for people who are wondering. The reason I'm posting here now is that I've encountered an event that's kind of left me shaken. I can't tell you exactly where this occurred because I still work there, and the last thing I need is a bunch of urban explorers coming to this place at night. Well, then I'd have to chase you all off, and ain't nobody got time for that. Anyway, I've looked online and I can't find anything related to what I'm looking into. So, I'll just tell the story and maybe you can come up with something. A few nights ago, I showed up to one of the many construction sites downtown to relieve my friend and take over for the night. My normal duties are to check in with him, see what he has to report, which is usually nothing, and then we walk the grounds for a few minutes. Then I go to the security room to start checking the cameras. In today's world, a lot of the cameras are motion sensitive and require little monitoring, except to see things in the distance and zoom in on what they may or may not be, and if they're trouble. I'm armed, just in case I have to scare off someone or hold them until the police arrive. But with Rona scaring the smart folks, only the idiots come out at night to places like this to explore or skateboard or something silly like that. So, on this particular night, after my friend left, I began to make my rounds and check things out. I went down to one of the lower levels and I noticed an odd set of bricks sitting in the middle of the floor. At first, I wasn't going to worry about it because this site was under reconstruction, but the bricks didn't match any of the bricks or mortar the construction crews were using. They were more like those red bricks down by the old city. There were about 4 of them, spaced evenly, 2 bricks on the ground and another brick atop the other. Thinking they were just keepsakes or whatever from the crew, I left them there and continued my rounds. It was about 2 hours or so later when I got the chime of one of the security cameras. Well, I put my phone down and looked up at the camera. The girl was walking about the site, with her hands in her pockets. I was going to get on the horn to tell her this place was off limits and dangerous, and that she needed to go home. But instead, I just watched her. She was walking with purpose, like she knew exactly where she was going, and was in absolutely no hurry. Well, I zoomed in closer to get a good look. She's a black girl, pretty with brownish skin, and kind of looked like the old girl from Black Panther, Nakia. Yeah, Lupita Nyong'o, that chick. It looked kind of like she was whistling something. She was wearing some biker shorts and a t-shirt. It looked like she wasn't carrying anything that I could see. She went right to the bricks on the level I'd been at earlier. Well, she didn't approach them right away. She just stood there for a moment, like she was examining them. Her head was tilting sideways, where she rubbed her chin. Then she reached into the side pocket of her shorts and pulled out what looked like a phone. She took some pictures, walked to the side of the building, and jumped off. I hit the alarm immediately and began to dial 911 as I rushed to the site of where she'd jumped. As I explained to the police what happened, I ran to the site to look over the ledge to see where she'd fallen to. Jumping from this side of the site led to a straight plummet about 3 stories high. She might not have died, but she damn sure broke something. But when I got there wasn't a body. There was no blood or anything. She was just gone. I could hear the sirens, so I headed back to the booth, and that's when I noticed that there were now 8 more bricks on the pile. I'd come back later to check on that, but for now the cops were here. Without a body to show them, they'd thought maybe I'd fallen asleep and thought I'd seen something. But then I remembered the cameras. I rewound the feed and watched the recording, and sure enough, there she was. The cops saw the video too. They saw the girl, and they saw her jump. They took a copy and told me to report anything like that to them if she came back or anyone else did. I watched the video hard for the rest of the night. I'm not afraid to admit I was shaken. That ain't some shit you see all the time. Well, I forgot about the bricks until the next day. And so, over the course of the next few nights, I watched as this series of bricks continued to grow. I had no idea how they were appearing, and since there were only 3 of us working these shifts, we each took turns recording the amount that would appear, and let the others know. My friend told me that he and the other co-worker tried to push and kick them over, but they wouldn't budge. Neither of them had seen the girl, and since the construction was halted for a few days, we knew it wasn't the workers doing it. So, on the night, something did happen. I mean, it was crazy. I was looking up ancient bricks and ghost bricks, all types of damn bricks online to see if there was anything I could find. Maybe this place was on a burial ground or something. One site I found had a great way of explaining the thing about burial grounds and hauntings. The whole world is a burial ground. Things have been dying since they've been living. The whole world is haunted. So, that wasn't it. And so I just watched the bricks again while I searched. And that's when I noticed it looked like it was forming some type of arch. As they stacked themselves, they looked like they were growing into a door of something. I was tempted to call the cops again, but the bricks building themselves were never recorded. Only the movement of people ever caused the alarm. So I got the idea to look up supernatural arches, and a bunch of YouTube clips about doors and passages to the other side came up. Then I realized that some crazy shit from someplace else was trying to build a door here, and it was almost finished. It might have maybe 8 or 10 more bricks to go. Well, I went to them and looked for something I could use to stop whatever the hell it was from coming over. Now look, I'm an atheist, still am, but I don't know everything. I don't know how to stop these bricks from forming that arch. Well, no tool I used worked, so I decided to put something between both sides to stop them from completing the arch. I took some rebar and put it in place and hoped that would be enough. I looked up the construction company's number and left a message on their emergency line. It was late, so I didn't expect anyone to show up. I just hoped the rebar would last until... And that's when I realized my fuck-up. I had just completed the arch. And trying to stop it, I completed the damn thing. I sat down in my chair, shaking. I just watched the camera feed as I realized what I'd done. I was too scared to leave, since I'd have to walk right by that place. I took out my gun and checked the ammo. I wasn't sure what good it would be against something that could build a door from another dimension, but I had no doubt I was now on the front line. I drank my soda as my body shook and I watched the camera, hoping nothing would happen until morning. Maybe they could blow the floor out from underneath it or something. And then I noticed the girl was back. The alert chimed. She was back again and walking normally, still whistling. This time she had on a pair of workout gloves, biker shorts, and a tight-fitting tee, and an expensive-looking pair of kicks. I watched as she approached the bricks and looked them over. And she took the rebar and knocked it out of the place I'd had it. Oh, you can't believe the relief I had when she did that. I had no idea who she was or why she was so into that damn thing, but I didn't feel like peeing my pants anymore. But that wasn't the end of it. She patted the bricks and then began to pace around them and do stretches and stuff, like she was getting ready for something. She knew something was going down, but what? How was she going to stop whatever was about to happen? She had no weapons and no offense. She was maybe 5'8", 5'9", about $160. I mean, she was in shape, but I think I could have taken her easy. And then, for the first time on camera, bricks appeared and continued to form the arch. As she backed away, I noticed her smile a bit. She moved away from the arch in a straight line, counting her paces. Then she knelt in the stances runners do when they race. Oh, she didn't move for like 30 minutes. Her head down, and she held the running position as the bricks began to close the arch. I cocked the gun without thinking, but I was still too scared to move. Sorry, ladies, but she was on her own. I had a feeling manning up was going to get me dead real quick. Sweat was pouring down my face as the last brick appeared and clicked into place. I held my breath as I watched her, her head still down, and then I switched to the arch. Something was happening. The bricks did a 180 and something black began to form in the center. Now, when I say black, I mean black. It was so black it was like it had swallowed the light in the immediate area, and still she didn't move. Her head was still down. And then something, I don't know, some old freaky shit, some Lovecraft, Edgar Allan horror shit started coming out of that arch. I swear I wanted to turn my head, and honestly I don't know why. I'm not insane, but must be what she did to me later. But anyway, this, well, a thing like a man mixed with a bat made of black and grey jello with an elephant face stepped from the arch, and it noticed her. Legit, it saw her, and then it just stopped. Whatever, looked like it was in the midst of growling or yawning like a newborn, and it just stopped. Her head popped up, and I swear her eyes were on fire. Not flames coming out, but like the light fire makes. Well, then her skin, well, the veins beneath were like lava flows. And then she smiled again. Well, I'm not even going to lie. Demon dude scared the shit out of me, but the look in her eyes, the smile she made, and the way homie just stopped moving had me feeling bad for it. She ran at the dude so quick. I mean, so quick. She jumped up into the dude's face. Well, he was at least a good 7 or 8 feet tall, and her hand was glowing, and she just mugged old boy. Took him down. I mean, she smashed his head into the ground so hard I felt it in the booth. It looked like it tried to fight back, or at least it wanted to. She sizzled its arm off. Then she took a wing. Oh, the stench was so bad it was like burning rubber and fresh dog shit. It screamed a scream I never want to hear ever again in eternity. I mean ever. She stood up and looked at it, then at the arch. It mouthed something at her, but its face was so mangled and burned. But she didn't kill it. She took her finger as it tried to back away. Well, I know that if she wasn't here, that thing would have eaten me or killed me or whatever. But right now I felt bad. I felt bad for a demon. A thing. She carved something into its jello chest and then put her hand over it. The thing howled again. Oh, it was almost like torture. Then she dragged it back to the arch and tossed it back in. All the body parts that she'd sizzled off and any blood or whatever it had for blood vanished when it went back through. She knocked over the arch and placed her hands on the ground. The bricks vanished, and then she stood. Then she looked up at the cameras and did a duck face with double peace signs. Well, that shit put me over the top. I had to be dreaming all of this. Maybe it was on a bender or something. When I turned from the cameras to collect my thoughts, she was knocking on the door to the security booth. "You okay in there?" she said, looking down at me. I had long since forgotten about the gun. I just nodded as she spoke. "Good. Just so you know, you might want to let those pants air out, or at least wash them before the next shift," she added, pointing at my pants. Well, I'd wet myself and hadn't even realized it. "Please, don't kill me," was all I could say. "Nah, you're good. That thing didn't even want to kill you. It didn't even know you existed. You probably would have got yourself killed trying to kill it, though. Hey, open up. I've got some bad news and good news for you. Please, don't, I begged. Come on, dude. You saw what I can do. I don't want to damage your property, but since you were here, things like that are so consensual now. I need you to not get dead. Is that okay? Well, I nodded and let her in, fully expecting to die. But she held me up and stopped my shaking. I'm going to make sure things like that never bother you again, okay? I nodded as she lifted up my sleeve. Her eyes turned that fiery amber as she touched my shoulder. I felt a quick burning sensation, and then it passed. We're all done. You might want to take the rest of the night off, though, she said. You're scary as fuck, you know that. I told her with false bravado, adding, What the hell was that? Oh, an escape bee I was hired to send back. Don't worry about it anymore. You're good now. See ya. And then she was gone. Jumped off the side again. Well, I downloaded the video for my own record. I mean, this happened. But whatever she put on my arm must be keeping me from going nuts. I haven't had anything like that happen to me again. So, has anyone else ever seen or experienced anything like that? What was she? Look, is this some Philly urban legend about some black chick running around Philly beating the shit out of things not from here? Does Philly have urban legends? Hit me up, please. I kinda don't want to know, but then again I do. So 3 strange security footage stories there for your Friday evening's entertainment. It really is a fertile subject area, isn't that? Yes, it's the mix of, well, what can possibly be going wrong? It's been recorded, it's there in solid form. How could it be messed with? Then all of a sudden something strange happens, and that for me is true horror, when what we know and trust from everyday life is subverted slightly. Well, that's enough for your Friday evening's entertainment, isn't it? I hope so. I'll be back again on Sunday, probably. One of the serials I've neglected forever. Hopefully I'll be resurrecting this Sunday. Not quite sure which one yet, but, well, we'll wait and see. Well, have a lovely weekend, everyone. Till the next time, very, very sweet dreams, and bye-bye. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. It really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams, and bye-bye.